Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to GamerTube, and welcome back to our Five Nights at Freddy's character concept series. So in today's video, the character looking into is Preston the Penguin. So we'll go into this character's location, gameplay mechanics, backstory, and all that good stuff as well. As always, I will just state that everything I say in these videos isn't necessarily linked to the overall lore and universe of FNAF. This is just a fun, cool, creepy story we get to tell, and we hope you enjoy. And lastly, before we start today's video, do be sure to subscribe to GamerTube as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. It always keeps you up to date with all the videos that we post. Alrighty everyone, well let's get into the character concept of Preston the Penguin. So in our previous video, we were introduced to the North Pole Pizzeria. An Arctic themed pizzeria with multiple frozen attractions and characters. The first character we met was Patrick the Polar Bear. After Patrick had an unfortunate run-in with a guest, they were never quite the same again. Patrick then turned their sights on the employee. The employee was the stand-in for the night guard who had mysteriously disappeared. Throughout the night, Patrick tried multiple times to attack the employee. But our protagonists did their best to fend them off. So now we come to the second night shift at the North Pole Pizzeria. And with a night shift comes a new character. And this character is Preston the Penguin. Preston was modelled after the Emperor Penguin. He was given the classic black and white colour scheme. They also had a bright yellow beak, orange bird-like feet, and green eyes. So Preston's role up on stage was that of the bass player. Preston had a special bass guitar that was designed to look like it was made of ice. He would play up on stage alongside Patrick as they both sang their jolly birthday songs. But when Preston wasn't up on stage playing bass, they also had another role at the pizzeria. So Preston was also in charge of the snow cone bar. This is where the guests would be able to get their very own flavoured snow cones. One of the workers would grind up all the ice with their special grinding machine. And then they would shape the frozen treat and pass it to Preston. This is where Preston would add the flavouring. So inside his inner workings were multiple containers filled with different flavoured syrups. Preston's beak would slide open and the flavouring would pour out onto the snow cone. Then he would pass it to the guests. The pizzeria played around with multiple different flavours. In Preston's 3 inbuilt flavour reservoirs they had blueberry, lime, and orange. Sometimes they would have special flavours throughout the year, but it was mainly those 3 flavours. They once toyed around with a cherry flavoured syrup, but a stream of red liquid pouring out of Preston's beak didn't look right, especially with all the rumours surrounding Fazbear Entertainment. They thought it would be best not to use the blood red liquid going forward. It was a shame though, because red just so happens to be Preston's favourite colour. They would do anything to have the red cherry flavour back again. But they just had to make do with the flavours that they had. So all in all, Preston was considered to be a successful animatronic. They were popular with the guests, and their unique ability of making snow cones was definitely a hit. But all of this would soon change after Preston's unfortunate accident. The accident would change them and how they acted forever. So at the time before the accident happened, the security guard was still working at the pizzeria. They would only ever be here of a night time to keep an eye on the place. Before the employee took over their role as temporary night guard, they worked at the prize counter. The employee would talk to the night guard here and there, only for a half hour or so before they finished for the day and the guard started their shift. They seemed nice. Nothing ever seemed off about the night guard. The only noticeable thing about them was the camcorder they were always carrying. Management didn't know they had it on them. The night guard mentioned a couple of times that the animatronics acted differently at night. They wanted to film them and get footage of all the quirky things they'd be doing. None of this ever really mattered to the employee. They just wanted to finish their shift and go home. But now they're in the role of the night guard, there was definitely some truth to what they said. After watching that videotape last night, it seems they managed to get some weird stuff on camera. They wondered if there was any more tapes lying around. And more importantly, they were concerned about whatever happened to the night guard. So before the employees started their next night shift, they once again searched for all the paperwork and documents on the characters at the pizzeria. This time they took a look at Preston the Penguin. This poor animatronic had an unfortunate accident a couple of weeks ago. It didn't happen when they were working though. This managed to happen on the night guard's shift. So it was just a regular night when all the characters were placed into their free roam setting. They were all walking around going about their business. But on this unfortunate night, Preston managed to wander into the kitchen. The kitchen was often kept pretty clean. No matter how clean you keep it, the establishment couldn't avoid the pesky problem of rats. They weren't too much of a problem, but they managed to sneak in here and there. But there was one rat in particular who was in for quite a horrible time. So when the day was finished, the staff would usually pack away the ice shredder. But this time they forgot to pack it away and unplug it. Whilst Preston was wandering around the kitchen, the unlucky rat crawled into the shredder. It tripped off the sensor and shredded it to bits. The sudden noise caught Preston's attention as he went to investigate the loud machine. And what he saw was the shredder covered in a red shiny liquid. The only thing that came to Preston's robotic mind was the cherry syrup. Finally, after all this time, their favourite coloured syrup was back. Once again, they could have the red cherry flavour. Without hesitation, Preston drove his hands and beak straight into the shredder. That would soon prove to be a decision Preston would regret. Fortunately, they managed to free themselves from the shredder, but the damage was already done. Their arms, beak, and legs have all been shredded, and his eyes lost that green colour. They were now just a strange milky white. The next day, when the staff members found him in the state he was in, they deemed him out of order. They stored him in the repair room until they could get him fixed. The workers all thought that's where he would stay. But at night, he would still wander around and terrorise the night guard when he still worked here. A couple of weeks later, time had finally come for Preston to get repaired. It was up to the employee/temporary night guard to check him out. They had to ensure his flavour syrup tanks were drained before the repair worker arrived tomorrow. So the employee opened up Preston's beak and located the syrup purge button. They got a bucket ready and pressed the button. It took a while, but all of a sudden, a thick dark liquid poured out of the nozzle. What on earth was this? Maybe the syrup has spoiled. Whatever happened to it, it sure didn't smell like syrup anymore. After the tanks were drained, they closed his beak once again. As they did, the employee cut themselves on Preston's jagged beak. A stream of blood poured from the employee's hand. As it did, Preston's eyes grew wider. The employee rushed to the first aid kit to grab a bandage. What they found alongside all the med supplies was another strange VHS tape. What was this doing in here? They bandaged themselves up and placed the tape in the VCR. They eagerly awaited what they'd see this time. So it seems the Night Guard managed to capture more of the strange events that were taking place. They wondered if these tapes would ever reveal what happened to them. They also weren't sure if they really wanted to know. Regardless, it was time to start their second night shift, so they headed to the security office to get ready. Meanwhile, Preston couldn't stop thinking about what they saw. It was that red cherry syrup. They can't believe they saw it again. The employee must have been filled with the stuff. This time, they weren't going to fail. They would get every single drop of that precious cherry syrup, even if they had to drain it all from the employee's fragile, soft body. So now let's get into the gameplay segment of the video. As always, the gameplay loop is based on the classic FNAF formula of observation and management. Whilst keeping an eye out for Patrick, they also need to be on the lookout for Preston. His starting position would always be in the repair room. As soon as the night shift begins, he would be on the move. So Preston would always approach from the left-hand door. As soon as the player sees him, they would need to close the door immediately. Preston would have a few tricks up their sleeves. In trying to enter the office, they would also be able to spray the player with a strange dark liquid. Even though the player drained it all, it managed to come back. If the player isn't quick enough to shut the door, Preston can spray them directly in the face. This would temporarily blind them until they wiped it away from their eyes. They would need to click repeatedly until it faded away. Also, Preston could spray the floors with the slick dark fluid. This would cause the floors to become slippery and grant the other characters, including himself, a slight speed boost. Another trick he'll pull is spraying the cameras and blocking the visual feed for the rest of the night. All these tricks and attempts to enter the security office would put a lot of pressure on the player. If they weren't able to keep up, they'd be greeted with a classic FNAF jump scare. So I think Preston the Penguin would be a great addition to the North Pole Pizzeria. A penguin character is a must-have for its Arctic theme. And Preston's backstory and motives are quite disturbing to say the least. Their appearance is enough to freak out the player, and their gameplay will surely give them a fright as well. Alrighty everyone, well that's all we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing, as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. As always, let us know in the comment section down below what you thought of Preston the Penguin and what you'd like to see going forward. Alrighty everyone, well until the next video, catch you later, bye.